and Donna had gone into labor, and I was so nervous, and she reminded me that we had this big bag of oranges, and she said, you sat down in the middle of the floor in the living room while I was going into labor and started eating these oranges as fast as you could eat them. So, and so the next day Caroline was born at Tampa General Hospital. So just 1 mile away from here, 60 years ago, she was born, and to think that 60 years later, this group of friends and children, and both Donna and I are so honored and blessed to be able to be here 60 years later with Caroline, and we love her so much. And I can't, I'll tell you a short story that's true. I can't say much because I get too emotional. I was at my neurologist a few weeks ago, and we were talking, and I told him, I said, you know, I said, I'm just, one of the things that's wrong with me is I'm a little more fragile than I used to be. I said, for example, if I'm talking to my grandchildren sometime and we're talking about remembrances or something, I said, I'll just tear up and start to cry. And he said, oh, wait a minute. And he disappears, and he comes back with a sample of a drug. He said, I want you to try this. He said, I'll give you a prescription. And so when I got ready to go, he gave me a prescription, and I told him I just cried once in a while, and so when I got emotional like that. So we called Publix and took the prescription over there, and a day or two later, the druggist called, and he said, Mr. Clark, I want to tell you, he said, this drug is really not covered by your insurance. In fact, it's not even in the formulary for your insurance at all. And he said, it would run you, the best price that we could get would be $1,600 for 30 pills. And he said that would be a month's supply. It was a drug called Nuedexta. So I said, well, I think I'll pass. So a couple of weeks ago, I was back in to see Dr. Reddy. And Dr. Reddy, we were talking about different things, and he said, by the way, did you try that drug, and how's it working out? I said, you know, for some reason, I just haven't been crying that much. So he dropped the subject, and that was the end of that. So, you know, but I looked up that drug on the internet, Nuedexta, and I looked it up, I Googled it up, and it said it's a drug for spontaneous or habitual crying, excessive crying, or laughing. So Google it up yourself, and you'll see that. And so I'm thinking, wait a minute, that drug's not going to do that, because how would it know the difference? But anyway, sweetheart, we love you so much. You're precious to us and always have been.